Well, Russian authorities are opening more military enlistment centres near border checkpoints in an apparent attempt to draft men trying to flee the country. New offices have been set up at crossings like Kazakhstan, which has taken in over 100,000 Russians since reservists were mobilised to fight in Ukraine. Now President Putin has admitted that some people were called up by mistake.
Protesters clash with police in Dagestan. Hundreds of soldiers from the region have died in Ukraine, and opposition to mobilization is strong. But elsewhere in Russia, protests and attacks on conscription centers underline the growing anti-mobilization sentiment. The call-up has been running everything but smoothly. President Vladimir Putin admitted that mistakes had been made.
Many issues are emerging during the mobilization. It's necessary to fix all the mistakes and avoid making them again in regards to citizens who, for example, are eligible for deferment. It concerns fathers of many children, or people suffering from chronic diseases, or those who are above the draft age.
The Russian leadership say the draft is only a partial mobilization, only for men with previous army experience. But the exact amount of the new recruits has not been made public. Opposition Russian media estimate that as many as 1 million Russians might have been called into the army. The mobilization has brought out many other challenges too. Even those who are willing to fight fear they won't be equipped adequately by the army. In this shop in Chelyabinsk, recruits try to buy whatever they can.
Mobilised reservists get what the government provides. They receive winter and summer clothes and shoes. The rest depends. People are buying flashlights for themselves. There are also not enough sleeping bags and mats for everyone.
While it's unclear who exactly will get drafted within the current decree, many choose to leave the country out of fear of being called to service. In Georgia, authorities say around 10,000 Russians are crossing the border every day.
I have escaped the mobilization. I don't want to die for the regime. I don't think it's legal. Basically, it's criminal.
Other countries with land borders to Russia have also reported thousands of crossings since the mobilization was announced. But they are already growing wary of the large number of arrivals. EU member state Finland closed the border for Russians with tourist Schengen visas at midnight, making it even more difficult for many to flee mobilization.
Journalist Peter Koslov joins us from Riga. Peter, you're in Latvia. What has the reaction been there to Russian men fleeing conscription?
Well, here the reaction is a little bit different because the fleeing of Russian people, not only men, the possible conscripts, but also women, started here very massively after the beginning of the war in the end of February. And Latvia and the other Baltic states became one of the first initiatives and hardliners to stop the fleeing of Russians here. One of the reasons is because here in Latvia is a quite valuable part of Russian-speaking population was before the start of the war, after the collapse of the Soviet Union. So the authorities fear that the possible income of new Russians, it could destabilize the situation.
Could you give us an idea if this botched call-up of reservists in Russia could destabilize Putin's regime in any way?
This is a very crucial moment for Vladimir Putin and the situation in Russia. The analysts say that after the decision of starting the mobilization, the unofficial contract between the Russian society and President Putin was broken. The contract, which was of course not written, it was meaning that the Russians become the safety, the security, and the right to live their personal lives, but they had not to intervene in politics. But today, as we see and as we understand, this contract was thrown into the rubbish bin because the people from ordinary villages, from small towns, and from the capitals are being conscripted to the army, and they are being very rapidly sent to the to trainings and to the positions of Russian army in Ukraine.
Journalist Peter Koslov in Riga, thank you very much for joining us here on DW.